not sure if you guys know this, but one of the reasons why I wrote Godly Ambition, my first ever book, is because of the complete new world that we live in and how that's affected a lot of men. There's 7 million men who can work but aren't working. Okay, so they're not folks on disability. These are folks that just checked out of the job market. And there's an interesting correlation here. I don't want to say it's causation, but I think it's close. Guys, I'm ecstatic to be going on my first ever theater tour, the Godly Ambition Tour, coming to a city near you. This is what I need you to do. I need you to hit the link in the pinned comment below. And if your city is on this list, make sure you sign to join the waiting list. You will be the first to access tickets. We have March 21st, Houston, Texas. March 22nd, Dallas, Texas. Chicago, Illinois, April 10th. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, April 12th. Arlington, Virginia, April 25th. And New York City, April 26th. Los Angeles, May 9th. Clearwater, Florida, which is right outside of Tampa, May 15th. And Atlanta, Georgia, May 16th. So hit the link in the pinned comment or go to blessgod.co, hit live events. And if you see your city, hit join the wait list. And you just put in your information, you will be the very first to get information for ticket sales with a special code before they go public. So I can't wait to see some of you guys in person. We're going to have an amazing time. I believe live events are the most efficient way to help people transform their life. My life was transformed at a live event similar to this one. And so I can't wait to come together, show you guys some new music I've been working on, some spoken word poetry. I'll be doing a talk and a live podcast Q&A, just like you've seen me do over and over. So we'll also have some special guests. So again, hit that link in the pinned comment or go to blessgod.shop, hit the live tabs, and I'll see you on tour this spring. All right? Peace. Play you guys this intro, and then we'll get into this one specific part that's fascinating.
That this men without work thing is because there isn't any work for the men. Millions and millions of those jobs are not for like hedge fund managers or chemical engineers. A lot of jobs where the main qualification is showing up on time every day, not stoned. And even so, employers have not been able to fill these millions and millions of extra jobs.
Ain't that crazy? 7 million people not working that can work, and they're not white collar jobs, right? Now, check this out. This is very fascinating. When he gets into why this is a thing.
I remember hearing you say that a married African-American man is less likely to be in this cohort than an unmarried white American man.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Listen to that. All the folks that are talking about race and race realism and all this nonsense, according to this, a married black man is less likely to be a part of this 7 million unemployed men who have checked out than an unmarried white man. Okay, so, sounds like there's some interesting sociological phenomenon there.
And in effect, this little ring kind of overcomes or erases the ethnic differential disadvantage, if you want to call it that.
Being married erases any sort of ethnic disparities in the job market. Isn't that interesting, ladies and gentlemen?
And there are other things like that as well. If you are a foreign-born guy and you're a high school dropout, your labor force participation is going to be very close to that of a native-born college guy. I mean, so it's not just the disadvantage of the skills, right? I mean, there's something else. There's something else going on.
Did you look at family structure that they came from? Were you able to break this down by single parent household that they'd grown up in?
No, I wasn't. I mean, that's a really good question. It's a really good question, but I didn't have the information that could allow me to give you a good answer on that.
Okay, so we have up front a rather dramatic 7 million person cohort of men in the US. A large chunk of whom are not looking for work. What is the story of modern male unemployment? How do we get to the stage where this is a hidden catastrophe?
Well, like so many things in history, it happens gradually. It doesn't come upon us all at once like a meteor strike. After the end of the Second World War, for about 20 years, the work rates and the labor force participation rates of this group of guys we're discussing, the 25 to 54s, it's pretty close to 100%. Not 100%, but pretty close. And it wasn't going anywhere. It was bouncing around a little bit. Then starting in the mid-1980s, 60s, things started to change. And from, let's say, about 1965, it's a good year to mark it by, may not be perfect, but it's pretty close. From 1965 to our conversation today, it's been basically a straight line out of the workforce.
What happened in 1965? That's interesting. Okay.
Men, a flight from work, leaving work, not in labor force, whatever you'd like to call it. And it's eerie if you track this on a graph or a piece of paper. I did a first edition of a book on men without work in 2016, and I used this graph as the cover, which means almost a straight line. I mean, it's not quite geoastronomy. It's not quite that perfect, but it's pretty close for the social sciences. And what was really shocking to me was when I came back to do an update after the pandemic last year. It's almost exactly the same line. I could have taken the cover of that book and just, found a ruler and kept the thing going. I have no explanation for that. I mean, this is something that happens in the physical sciences. This is not something that happens in the social sciences. I mean, it will change eventually, but I was just stunned by that.
I heard that since around about 1950, men have retreated from the labor force at around about 0.1% per month. Solidly. Is that about right?
Jeez.
I'd have to do the numbers on paper, but it has been absolutely relentless. And I would have started it in the mid 60s. For the 1950s, it's more or less a kind of a slightly bouncing line with no trend that I could divine.
Okay. Economies, demographics, unemployment, we go through peaks and troughs, we go through cycles, boom and bust. Right. How have you managed to find, explain to me the underlying dynamic that has managed to create a ruler shape?
Yeah. All right. Well, we can start by the explanations that don't work, right? And because those are always so popular, and I think they're called received wisdom, right? So the received wisdom in this area is that this is a phenomenon driven by economic and structural technological change. That we've had this extraordinary.
It's the system's fault. It's the Jews. It's the immigrants. Right. It's everything out there. It's external.
Revolution since the end of the Second World War, which is true, and we've had this tremendous set of technological changes, and that's true. And we've had this big shift in demand, less demand for less skilled labor, true. Outsourcing, true. China enters the World Trade Organization, true. Okay, but that's not the whole story, and it's not even most of the story, I don't think. If it were most of the story, you couldn't get a straight line like the one I'm describing to you, because we have a business cycle, right? I mean, we've got boom and bust periods, and you go up and down. You'd see a big kapow when China enters the World Trade Organization. You see a big disruption. Doesn't show up. When we have our beautiful little monsters that disrupt all our technology, you'd see something. So,
at the end of the day, disruption is going to come in every industry, in every world. There's going to be disruption. There's going to be things that come, technological advances. But he's saying that that's not what's causing this consistent line of working men fleeing the job markets.
That's not happening. What else isn't happening? Well, if you take a look at men with less skills, they are not all commonly disadvantaged in the labor force. If you take a look at foreign-born guys who are high school dropouts, but they're married, their work rates and labor force participation rates are indistinguishable, as I mentioned, from college-born. College guys are domestic.
Seems to be that correlation to being married there. Isn't that interesting?
On the other hand, if you take a look at a native-born guy who's never been married, it's a disaster. It's like 50% or less chance of being even in the workforce. So
you mean there's something to the order of the 4 traditional benchmarks of growing up? Move out, work full-time, get married, have kids. 1975, half of adults had hit those benchmarks. Half. Okay, 1975, by the time they were 30, half have hit those 4 benchmarks. Move out, get married, move out, work full-time, get married, have kids. Today, only 25% are hitting those 4 traditional benchmarks of growing up. Maybe we pushed out the window of adolescence. Maybe we've coddled people too long and told them it's okay if you don't work full time. It's okay if you don't get married. It's okay if you don't have a family. It's okay if you don't do the natural things that I would argue most people, I understand there's exceptions to the rules. I understand some people may be called to celibacy, lifelong singleness. I understand that. But generally speaking, most people desire to get married. And if you desire to get married, that means you got a desire to move out and desire to work full time.
So in this group that's supposedly homogenous, there are like 40 percentage points of difference in participation. So that part doesn't work so well either. The really biggest, I think, challenge to this idea is the extraordinary peacetime labor shortage that we're having now, which at the time of our conversation, 10 or a million unfilled jobs in the United States.
So there's 7 million people who can work but choose not to, and there's 10 million open jobs in the United States as of the shooting of this video, which was 2 years ago. Maybe that's changed a bit now with all the AI layoffs and stuff.
So you can't say that this men without work thing is because there isn't any work for the men. And millions of those jobs are not for like hedge fund managers or chemical engineers. There are a lot of jobs where the main qualification is showing up on time every day, not stoned. And even so, employers have not been able to fill these millions and millions of extra jobs.
Is that employers can't get somebody to come and do the job without getting them fired, or is that people simply aren't applying for the jobs?
It's a good question.
There are a lot of jobs that people aren't applying for. I mean, we have seen a spike of about 4 million in the total number of unfilled jobs since the eve of the pandemic. We have also seen a slump of about 4 million total in the size of the workforce by comparison to what we would have expected from the pre-COVID trends. Not all of these are guys, I hasten to say. We're seeing now a sort of a new face to the flight from work in America. But the problem with the men fleeing the workforce was the original origin of all of this.
How many women are added into this cohort?
If you count women who are over the age of 55, a considerable number. There are some under 55 as well. There is a problem that is, one might say, no bigger than a man's fist on the horizon heading towards us, which is the kind of the doppelganger, the women without work. I'll tell you that in a moment. But if we look at the 55 plus group, they account for more than half of the shortfall that I just mentioned to you. And this is a very new phenomenon because from the 50s until about the 90s, American men and women were kind of starting to enjoy the notion of retiring early. But from the mid-90s up to the eve of COVID, these older workers were basically the only bright spot in the American labor tableau.
And again, as I've said this before, life has gotten harder if you're average. If you're average and you're in that bell curve shape, let me show you what I mean. So if you were here in the bell curve, right up in here, in the 90s, man, you were crushing it. You were doing fine. You could work a job, work it for 30, 40 years, get to watch when you retire, buy a home, live on a single income. In this rate, you were fine, right? If you were average. The issue is that is very difficult to do today with inflation, with the cost of living. So if you want the things that your parents had or your grandparents had, you now have to be above average. You got to be an outlier. And I understand that not everybody can be an outlier because then statistical math doesn't make sense. But to me, it doesn't have to make sense because not everybody watches my channel. Not everybody reads the Bible, right? The path, the road is broad to destruction and the path is narrow according to Jesus. So if you're a Christian, by default, you should already be an outlier. You should already not be average in other areas. You should be going to church. You should be reading your Bible. You should be taking care of yourself, right? A biblical worldview should impact how you view yourself. And so it's like, what if the people that are coming to Jesus, one of the things that's happening is from their mindset to their heart to their behavior, they're moving along from being average Joes to being outliers. And that impacts their employment. That impacts their financial literacy. That impacts their biblical literacy. You're moving into this. And so I think that there's something to becoming outliers and saying, I understand it's harder. I'm not going to be like the rest. I'm going to move and become an outlier. Because that if you want to be married and have a family and buy a home, we all have to do that, right? How do we do that? We have to find those cornerstone habits that change things for us. Those the one thing that you adjust that creates a domino effect, right? So a lot of this is, again, what I'm exploring in godly ambition, which so many Christians are struggling because you got the cognitive dissonance around ambition. Should I go after what God's calling me to do, or should I bury myself because I don't want to be too successful? You have the systemic cultural phenomenon of, yes, it's getting harder to make a living. And so that's why I put together Godly Ambition. You should pick it up. We're going to add these to the shop soon, some signed edition copies. But hopefully this brings some clarity to you guys on why this is happening. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you liked it, then hit the like button. If you liked it a lot and have a thought to share, leave a comment. If you are listening to this on the podcast app, make sure to leave a review. And you could even leave a comment over there. And if you want to watch another video that is recommended just for you, hit this video over here. Let me know if they nailed it. Also, you can partner with us monthly, which helps us out a lot in our monthly community. Get access to early drops and all that kind of good stuff over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.